I'm Tom Fenning.
And I'm Peter Skerratt.
And this is the Beccles Baptist Church Reading Together podcast, which aims to encourage us as we as a church family read Enjoying God, a book by Tim Chester, so to prompt further thinking and further discussion of everything that we have read. At the start of this, our last podcast, our 16th and last podcast, looking at the book, I want to start by saying a big thank you to a guy called Joseph McDade. He's the guy who provides the music. He's made it freely available for us. We're really grateful for that, to top and tail things and give us a nice intro and exit. And I've got to mention it now, or I will forget at the end of the podcast. Well, to date, we have walked our way through each of the individual chapters. I'm just trying to provide some measure of summary and shed some light on some of the things that might have been confusing in some of the chapters. We've sought to do our best. And today, as a bit of a last hurrah, we're simply seeking to draw together the strands of thought that we've seen in the book and just to pick some highlights. So, Peter, start off with this one. In what way, as a book as a whole, has reading this book helped your walk with Christ, your relationship with God? Where have you noticed the difference?
I think the big thread has been the way that he has sought to kind of reclaim the experiential, I think, actually, for the Christian faith. For me, that's been a really helpful challenge and reminder that we love truth, but the truth is it's about a personal God. And so for me, particularly the early chapters were just really helpful in establishing what it is that we're talking about, communion with God. We talk about relationship, and we said before as a church that relationship is in itself not particularly helpful, because you could have a relationship with your Hoover or any kind of thing. What kind of relationship? And communion just talks about a two-way, familial, personal relationship. So that's been helpful. And then that chapter on joy is actually Paul's goal for the Christian faith. I'm seeking your progress and your joy in the faith. And so seeing the vital role of experience, actually not just for some types of Christian, but actually it is the Christian life, is an experience of knowing God.
An experience in delight and in joy, not just experience of experience or experience of hardship, but experience of delight.
Quite. And we took, relationships have different types of experience, but they are good, bad, hard, whatever. It's tied to the relationship. And there's a status thing. I'm related to Alice, for example. But there's also an experience within that I have of that relationship day to day that is vital for the health of that relationship and something I can enjoy. So that's for me been the big thread of reclaiming the experiential. What about you?
Good. Mine would be connected to that. And it would be this, that I think the danger let me speak personally for me, is that I consider my realm of experiencing God, of enjoying knowing Him, is kind of ring-fenced in a small arena of my life, which is made up of a few kind of component parts, my reading my Bible, my praying, my hearing sermons, maybe singing songs with God's people. But what the book has served to do is basically to say, hold on a minute, every inch of human experience comes under the auspices, under the control of a sovereign God who guides everything, and actually He is relating to me in every moment of life. And so I think the analogy that to try and explain what that looks like is that I think for me, I can feel like my relationship with God is a bit like a swimming pool. I can enjoy swimming in a pool. And Tim Chester said, actually, no, hold on a minute. It is an ocean, and there's just much more experience here. So in all of my pleasures, in all of the kindnesses God expends to me, I should be saying, hey, this is God's goodness. In my suffering and trials, hey, God is trying to form me like His Son. In my temptations, when I'm able to resist them, in the forgiveness He grants me, in the meeting with God's people, in the relationships I enjoy with anyone, that God is at work through all of these things. God is loving me, relating to me, And I think it's just blown open to say, actually, every second of the day and the night, even when I'm asleep, is God's love towards me. And I need to learn to respond to him in each of those contexts. Yeah. So I need to get up, I need to realise that I'm not swimming in a pool, I'm swimming in an ocean. And that expands my picture of God and expands my understanding of my relationship with him.
Which I suppose ties into what your favourite chapter was of the book. Do you want to tell us about
so my favourite chapter was chapter 3. Which is entitled, I should read the title, shouldn't I? In every pleasure we can enjoy the Father's generosity. And I just loved the way, steered by what the scriptures say, Tim Chester was able to say, actually, every inch of experience is just God's kindness to you. And I love that picture that Tim Chester used, describing a day of him stood in his allotment, waiting for the delivery of a shed, when his phone battery had died, and seeing a red kite, enjoying good weather, and then the shed arrives without him needing to run home and make a phone call. And just going on the sight of that beautiful bird, the good weather, the grace of a shed delivered on time, all of these are just God's kindness to me. Actually here, in these things, I'm experiencing God's generosity. And yeah, it just broadens your horizons as to where God is kind. Yeah. And I think ups my rate of thanksgiving.
Yeah. As a couple of people have mentioned, they valued the talk of a fathered world, and kind of seeing everything as part of his good provision for us, and gratitude therefore leading back to God.
That's my favourite chapter, chapter 3. Your favourite chapter?
Yeah, what chapter number is it? I think it's chapter 9. In every temptation, we can enjoy the Spirit's life. And I just found it really helpful in basically raising my expectations of what life with the Spirit is like. And kind of reclaiming that language of the power of the Spirit. If we say, have you experienced the power of the Spirit in your life? I wonder what people think of instinctively. But he actually just gives really seemingly simple examples, but actually when you realize that the Spirit is battling our kind of fleshly, sinful nature, it's a resurrection from the dead, basically. That's what he's done. He says that when you have faith in Christ, when you willingly serve, when you joyfully sacrifice, when you just love other Christians or turn up at a prayer meeting when it's a cold evening, and all of these kind of small examples.
Seemingly average things.
Yeah, and our basically resurrection being shown. And I said it in the podcast before, but he says you already have resurrection power coursing through your veins. It's the Spirit in us who gives life, and we're in the realm of the Spirit if he lives in us. So that's just really encouraging, expecting a change, and then actually just seeing new change, and any small changes in my life is actually not that small. They're pretty massive things that he has done in me. So I just found that really helpful. Just small illustrations like a developer buying a house and sending in a one-person renovation force. The Father has bought up us and sent in the Spirit to live in us and dwell in us and renovate us. So that was just a memorable chapter for me.
That's great. Well, we're almost through. We just want to end by pointing you in the direction of some further reading. If you wanted to think further on the kind of topics launched in this book, where would you send Peter?
If you wanted to think a bit more about the nature of God, particularly as the triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit, and what that means and how that works in practice, I'd recommend The Good God by Mike Reeves. The Good God. He is writing very much in the same vein as Tim Chester in seeing that we don't have a kind of monad, single, lonely God up in the sky.
Monad means a God of one person.
Being, yeah. We have a kind of Trinitarian, relational, loving, outgoing, overflowing kind of God. And he just helps show that from Scripture and show what that means for the way that we view God. And that really, the way you view God, as we've seen in this chapter, just changes how you live with him. So yeah, that's like the good God.
Yep. And my recommendation would be by an American pastor, a guy called John Piper. One of his most famous books is a book called Desiring God. You can go and read that if you want to. It's harder work than the book I'm going to recommend, which is a book called When I Don't Desire God. And it really is picking up and running in the same direction that Tim Chester has had us walking, in giving us a kind of a map and a compass to pursue greater joy in God. He does it in a slightly more extended fashion, but really helpfully, just thinking again in all of the arenas in which we can know God's goodness and his kindness, and in which we can delight in knowing him. He just gives us ways in which we can do that, through worship with God's people, through prayer, through reading our Bibles, through the delight in creation, through the victory over sin, through all these things. So that's When I Don't Desire God by John Piper. And your book again, Peter?
The Good God by Mike Reeves.
So there are recommendations, and that's the end of our 16th podcast here in the Reading Together podcast. We are currently thinking through whether we might do a similar series of podcasts at the same time as handing out a load of books to people here at church in the autumn, so come September. We're currently asking for people's feedback, so if your home group leader hasn't been in touch to ask you for that, or you've not had opportunity to let us know what you think, please drop us an email. You can find our email addresses on the website, or you can use the message. You can drop an email through the website to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here. We'll be in touch and see you sometime soon.